Staves and Tumas walked past the shed in the wilderness once thought to be the hiding place of a Hillicat. "I'll just take another look," Staves said, giving Tumas a chance to tuck into his packed lunch. Comariero had equipped them with bundles of leaves wrapped around cylinders of rice and dried meats, delicious hot or cold. Truly the Tranker had worked out how to eat well, even if something like blow work was a bit too zappery for them. "It really wasn't here," Staves reported when he returned. "Doubt it's anywhere, Butter," Tumas said. "There wouldn't be anything here at all if it wasn't somewhere." "What?" "Precisely," Staves grinned. Tumas wasn't sure what argument he'd just lost, and didn't care enough to find out. They had something else to focus on anyway. He consulted his shiny new map of the region, fresh from Teteus. The location Councillor Satsky had sent them to was close to the Shed of Disappointment, and for good reason. They were on the trail of another agent who had gone to locate the computer stashed there, but had gone quiet. And this agent was supposedly some real bigwig. The Tets were willing to gamble on working with weird off-worlders just for a chance to get him back. Soon enough, Staves and Tumas saw him lying on a gentle riverbank. "You two, Arafs?" the man called out, his voice pained. "Nah, your mummy sent us, Butter," Tumas called back. The downed man scowled at the pistol in Tumas's hand. "You're not from Bystone," he said. "We're mercenaries," Staves explained, as per the official cover story. "What happened to you here?" "Why don't you ludicrous pair get me up and running first, before you end up the same way?" The man could barely walk, so Staves and Tumas had to carry him away. Ahead was many days of further carrying to get him back to safety. Tumas, eager to not talk to Staves anymore after the outward journey, did most of the talking, and most of the carrying. The man's name was Holt, an official from what passed for government on Reticot. "It's the trucking birds. They've started picking up the scaria," he explained. "That's the killing disease, ain't it?" Tumas asked. Yeah, kinda. That's a spacer accent you've got." "From Orbital, Butter." "Orbital. Satsky hired pirates to save me. Trucking hard times. Got dropped in it too deep, so seeing how this line of work treats me instead. What's that about birds then?" "Not just birds. It's taking over everything. Scaria infects your mind. No idea where it's coming from. We were gonna start tracking it better with these, never mind." "Computers? Yeah, we nicked him." "You holding Satsky to ransom, that it?" "Not really. Boss man on the farm thinks that finding stuff out here will save the world or something." "Oh, well he sounds like the kind of guy we need then." "Yeah, you'll meet him soon enough. Tell him about your disease. He'll say it's a curse or something, so just be ready for that. Dunno if he'll really understand it at all." At that exact moment back in 3-Up Fort, Boy was gripping a hatchet in sweaty hands, peering through a crack in his bedroom door. Outside, a pack of angry, flightless birds were stalking the fields and jabbing at the crops. When Staves' forest rat ran out next to them, they pounced on it and killed it without hesitation. Some natural defense mechanism was triggered, and the rat's body burst into flames to spite the attacker. A burning bird flailed around, its flying feathers sending embers all over Boy's crops. This was the last straw, or the first straw to be specific, and Boy burst out of his room with hatchet aloft. The birds were all over him at once, their squealing calls incessant. From the barn now came Comariero, with the huskies at his feet. He brandished a steel short sword that he had made himself in the workshop, holding it with a hooked arm like it was a crab's claw. "Kote!" he shouted as he plunged the blade through the body of one of the birds. The birds were not at all scared of him or the barking dogs. They fought to the death, taking many a spot of skin off their attackers with their vice-grip mouths and grasping talons. "By the bits! Is this the roll-up, mate?" Boy asked amid the post-battle panting. "Not anymore. But the mass tries harder. What will become of our pathwalkers if this is what it served to us?" Boy felt a bolt of nerves more potent than anything the scuffle had brought about. While he would be the first to tell you that the roll-up was just some invented prophecy of people who had strayed very far from the Overlord, he couldn't help but notice that Comariero kept being right about things. Well, the truth was, if you hadn't guessed, that those birds were experiencing this scaria disease that Holt was rambling to Tumas about far away. Unable to contain his worry, Boy prepared a megasheep with bags of food and medicinal herbs and went out to find the away team. Just as well, because the slow pace Holt was forcing on them meant they'd be out of tasty cave pebbles long before they got home. So if you really think about it, the whole roll-up scare was causing Boy to accidentally save his companions. The foolish mass with its self-defeating prophecy. Luckily enough, aside from Staves constantly asking Tumas and Holt what he should name every animal he saw on the trail, things were going smoothly out there. The real action was again back in the colony, when on the last day of autumn, there was a boom and a jolt in the ground. After checking that the buildings and fields were in one piece, Lady peered out over the wall and saw smoke further along the hillside. She ventured out to discover another crashed drop pod. It was smashed into pieces on the side of a cliff, and in the grass below it was a woman who had fallen into a fortuitous bank of leaves built up by the wind against the rocks. She was conscious enough to gurgle at Lady, but that was about it. Strangely, she had the same shaved head/braided ponytail hairstyle as Tokka. Otherwise, she was ordinary enough, though her total nudity had Lady fretting backwards and forwards. Eventually she steeled herself and heaved the woman home, keeping her eyes closed. About halfway between the gateway and the cave entrance, behind which lay the spare bedroom, there was a great scream. It was like a lich, a phantom, wailing through a shimmering bow of time and space. It was Tokka. She bounded over too quickly and knocked the woman off Lady's back. "Shar!" was the only word Lady made out in the subsequent rapid speech. Not a useful word to make out, but we can use our handy hindsight to point out that this was the woman's name. How did Tokka know this? This was revealed later, once Shar was dressed in the literal and medical senses and put to bed. "I was looking for years, and she found me," Tokka said, tears in her eyes. Suffice to say, this wasn't the usual Tokka, i.e. the Psychite demon of darkness. The sight of her sister had snapped her back to reality. "Where were you?" Tokka whimpered, draping herself across sleeping Shar. "A twist that pulls backwards," Comariero commented. "You are bound again here. Where was it you were split?" Back home. I had to follow her. I couldn't take it without her," Tokka said. "But I didn't know anything. I couldn't get out of the tunnels. She was here. She really was here. I thought I'd busted it up. But she's here. And now, I don't even know how." Lady understood all this better than Comariero, prompting her to suggest Tokka and Shar be left in peace. Comariero agreed without a word. Tokka stayed in the cave with Shar until the next day. Just as Lady went to go back and make sure they'd eaten, Tokka came out with Shar leant upon her. "Are you okay?" Lady asked. Shar smiled. "Right where I wanted to be, just not in enough pieces. It all grows back though," she said. Her voice was precisely the opposite of her sister's, and in case you were wondering, her face was essentially Tokka's features but in a more traditional arrangement. She was the paler of the two, which was an achievement given Tokka's underground habitat. It's even darker up in the stations of the Reticot Outer Passage Administration, as she explained. She and Tokka had been working at the same organization for many years, but very much at opposite ends that were very far from each other physically and socially. "It was just research mainly at first," Shar explained. "But over the last, must have been 10 years, Reticot, maybe a couple in margin years. Yeah, during that time the research kinda stopped. I think the OPA stopped caring so much about the planet, being as it is. I ended up organizing parties and doing the murals in the connecting tubes. Who'd have thought you were out there in the rocks this whole time, you little goblin?" Tokka seems to be quite pleased to be called this, most likely only from Shar's mouth. "I was stupid. Or was I? Here you are," Tokka said. "I would have come back for you, eventually. It's hard to go back. Must have been even worse in the rocks. Shah, how did you find us? Lady asked. You found me. OPA monitors the Tets and Erifs. Everyone up there can hear whatever gets sent out on the airwaves. Everyone was passing around a funny clip from it. That's where I heard Sissy's voice, just like I remembered it. Shah, they don't understand all that, Tokka said. Lady tried to smile politely, but it was hard to deny. They're not like, I don't know. We are the fragments of many worlds, and this is the bowl we have slipped into, Comariero said, striding up. By the day, the debris falls harder. I've been called worse, citizen, Shah said. I hope so, Comariero nodded. That was all he had to say on the matter, since Shah, while not technically a Tet, was probably something far worse as far as tribal law was concerned. This is a strange place, Shah said. It's just what we need, Lady said, and it's safe. Or was it? At that moment, which was just before dawn, there was shouting from outside, the sort of shouting that had become familiar, Kote war cries. Comariero whistled for the dogs and rushed to fetch his sword. Is it dangerous here, sis? Shah asked. Kinda. Much safer than up there, but no psychite, Tokka said. At the same time, she produced her hunk of iron hand cannon, a wide caliber revolver. You can't be serious, Shah grinned. They ain't gonna spoil today, Tokka proclaimed. She stormed off towards the gate. You can come with me if you like, Lady offered as she shuffled towards the cave. No, it's fine. Is this really what it's like here? Shah asked. Lady didn't stay to answer. Downrange, the first blast sounded. Get back! Tokka screamed out. A few tribal warriors called her bluff and charged forwards, but they were soon missing important strips of torso as the hand cannon roared. Can I have a go? Shah asked, suddenly at Tokka's shoulder. What? She stuttered, but Shah wrestled the gun away effortlessly. Come out! She called through the gate. More warriors were hiding amid piles of bricks by the fields, which were en route to becoming further walls designed to prevent just such an incursion as this. A man stood and drew a bow, but before he released the arrow, he was thrown to the ground by the little punch of a half-centimeter metal slug. Wow! Shah marvelled. She tried to fire again, but the gun clicked hungrily. This was loud enough to garner attention from the remaining attackers. They broke from the brick line and ran at Shah with spears and hammers at the ready. She seemed not at all affected by the sight, and scarcely glanced at them as she inspected the gun for a reload mechanism. Come on, what are you doing? Tokka wheezed as she tried to pull Shah back. Hey, hands off! Shah dismissed her. Just before real trouble reached her, Comariero's whistle sounded and a fleet of hounds poured into the gateway. The attackers stumbled over themselves to turn around and run. One got bitten and pinned down, screaming for her comrades to aid her, in vain. Comariero pushed her head into the mud with the butt of his sword. You've much to learn about the Kote warriors, and of the Kote, he said. The woman tried to turn her head to look back, but he didn't allow it. What is that? You are talking of the Kote to me, she spat. Believe it, and be happy for it, because if I did not wish to do so, I would kill you now. You will see that this path is in line with the Kote on this mountain. Are you going to kill her? Shah asked casually. No, neither are you, Comariero scowled. Okay, your choice. It's very strange, this. It's like a virtual game, but nothing tells you how you've done, or if it's even over. Is it over? It's over. We have a seeker of truths on the path who will like you a lot. Just the one? If you're lucky. Shah was a little miffed that her friendly overtones were being rejected. Almost as miffed as she was about the low bullet capacity of silly Tokka's hand cannon. Tokka took her sister back into the cave for the benefit of all. Comariero dragged the survivor from the attack, a Tranka warrior, into the shed and started patching up the damage he had done, With the huskies sat there on guard, she didn't feel like trying anything bold, so simply had to await whatever fate Comariero had in mind for her. The other colonists no doubt wondered what all this was about too. In fact, when the away team returned a couple of days later, Boy was furious. "You can't just take people in, this isn't your house, remember?" he lectured Comariero. Comariero had his eyes on the rest of the team, coming through the gate behind Boy. "I am aware of that. Will your addition fare better?" he said. "What's the issue?" Tumas asked. "Apparently Tokka's sister's come and expects bed and board, and Com's put one of his friends in the shed." "What type is it?" Staves asked. "What? In the shed? Is it furry?" "Meat man, it is a human, like me," Comariero said. "A little furry then?" "In more ways than you know." "Getting the feeling like you ain't got space for my hunk of junk," Holt said from the back of a mega sheep. "We'll sort it out," Boy began. "First, I want you—" "Oh, hello!" Holt interrupted, seeing Lady come out of the hall. "Didn't want to ask, but I was real worried it was a very one-sided arrangement here, if you get me. Can't use the other side of the mountain until we dig there," Staves explained. Right, I don't even know what that means, but... "Oh, trucking all night!" Holt exclaimed. This time it was because Tokka had emerged onto the scene. Shah followed, but stopped and remained at a distance, leaning on a wall. "I'm happy you made it back," Lady said to Boy. "Me too. I think we gotta stop leaving. You've had some mess here, haven't you?" Boy said. You should stay next time, especially if there really isn't a Hillicat." "Oi, enough of that. For all we know, this chump is a Hillicat." "Your superstar here kinda made me think that word meant something else," Holt said. He grunted as he slid down from the sheep onto tender legs. Staves was the superstar, by the way, whose singing had spurred the party on through the wilderness, if only for promises of escaping its strange, unintelligible lyrics. Tindrans didn't sing in the same language they spoke in, but let's not get into all that now. The crew unloaded everything and settled down for a meal in the hall. Holt was actually impressed at the quality of the rice, for which Comariero and Boy tore equal pieces of credit. Tokka brought Shah to the table, then quickly excused herself and scurried away. "So, what's the deal with draft and polish over there?" Holt asked. After a while, Lady decided she knew what he meant. "Shah has been working with the cosmic things for a long time. Tokka is her sister. She was looking for her for just as long, around Reticot. And in space, I think. They finally got their family back, a little." "And what did you do, Miss Shar, with the cosmic things?" Holt asked skeptically. "I was a researcher with OPA. You seem like a discerningly grabby Tet. You must be aware of it all." "OPA researchers work for the OPA, not a mercenary rice farm in the middle of tribal grounds. That's half the problem with Reticot." "I agree. Reticot was hardly our foremost concern. But it might surprise you to learn that we had a laboratory treating samples of scaria." "You're trucking kidding me." "I'm trucking? What?" "I mean, yes, I'm being serious." "Then what's the answer?" Holt demanded, standing and leaning closer across the table. "Answer is you need to eat with your mouth closed, friend." "Scaria, spit it out!" "You're spitting enough for the both of us." "I can't trucking believe this." "You don't have to. We didn't cure it. We just studied it. I thought we should keep going, but OPA has concerns other than the planet. I think the planet might actually already be getting the chop from the IPA, if you know what I mean." Holt was the closest to knowing what she meant out of everyone, but he still didn't have the foggiest. While he bickered about Scaria with Shah, Staves consulted Boy on what was going on. "I think she's some kind of mega cosmic queen wonk," Boy mused. "Does she know where the Hillicat is?" Staves asked. "I don't know, do I? I think she's from another world or something. It's all too much. You look for clues, but everything's pointing in every direction you didn't even know there was, and all that." "Life in a butternut," Tumas chipped in. Eventually Holt turned to Boy. "You've got to get her up and running again. She knows her stuff. This is important," he demanded. "What exactly is it she knows?" Boy asked. "About the scaria, the thing I told you about. The thing that's driving everything mad, killing stuff, ruining this planet? She knows of the Kote, Comariero said, for the first time meeting her eyes. Fallen with treasures, seeking to climb away. We can grab each other's heels and all be enchained into a snake that rolls around the mass, even in the end. Sounds like I've got a job, Shah said with a nervous smile. She was right. Since winter was setting in anyway, and since Holt was too injured to go home, new bedrooms were bricked into place for the scaria sleuthing pair. What even is this scaria thing? Well, with any luck they'll tell us, so just be patient. And let's not forget Comariero's pet tribal warrior in the shed. Altogether, they drew from the warmth of the never-ending campfires, facing a challenging winter of getting along in the increasingly crowded mountainside estate. No Hillicats found so far, but they'd found each other one way or another. That was something. But it wasn't the real treasure they'd wished to find along the way, for the most part, so they'll just have to stay alive for another Redicott year of looking.